Hi everyone, hope you're all doing well. Reasons why people are leaving church. The first one is witchcraft, word curses, and jealousy. When someone's envious, sometimes they can try sabotage them. Do witchcraft, word curse them, and say, "Oh, you never do this. You never be this. You never be that." And they try to justify it by saying, "Oh, they don't deserve it." The insecurities are making them very heartless, selfish, and sometimes their envy can get people feeling so uncomfortable. Some people feel uncomfortable because the person's envying them and they don't understand why, and they're going through spiritual warfare and they don't really have anything. But sometimes jealousy does not make sometimes jealousy can make someone very ignorant, rude, abusive, and that they objectify the person. So the person has no choice but to walk away, because when someone's jealous and envious, it's really dangerous. The second one is being appearance driven. When you obsess with people's clothes, what they wear, it becomes uncomfortable to some people. Like, they feel restricted, they feel controlled. Like, it's okay to talk about, when it comes to immodesty, I get it. But when it comes to petty stuff and clothes that, some things that don't make sense, it can become a humiliation ritual. Nobody wants to be humiliated in church, and that's so important. So some people walk away because they don't want to get humiliated by people. Third one is slavery. They felt like an object. They felt like maybe it's spirit of rejection. Maybe they felt like they felt unseen. They felt like they were just used for works and that's it. And sometimes it's due to burnout. Maybe they're called to ministry. Maybe they're prophetic, and they felt drained. They felt depressed, and they couldn't understand it. But some people are called to ministry, and they go through spiritual warfare, and they felt burnt out. They want to be with God. They want to be working. It's draining for them, and they felt so burnt out. But they just, instead of talking and expressing themselves, maybe they're scared to express themselves. So they just walked away because they're scared to say that they're lazy, but there really was like, they were just burnt out. And the next one is poverty. Sometimes people lose their jobs, and life happens, and when that happens, sometimes they sit there and they feel like a burden. They don't want to be a burden, especially if the church keep talking about money. If every sermon, if every sermon nearly about money, and sowing a seed and stuff like that, is like, they feel very, very embarrassed because they have poverty issues with work, and they want to budget, they want to do things properly, and some people are unemployed for like half a year to a whole year. It used to be easier to get a job, but the job market is so bad these days, and sometimes they feel like you're not aware of the world. You're not aware of the world, and sometimes they can feel very, very embarrassed and ashamed, and sometimes just walk away because they just assume that you don't understand the job market. The fifth one is spiritual warfare and family issues. Sometimes life happens, they're in hospital, they're going through issues with their family, and when they come back to church after a few weeks, or like they hear sermons about, someone's throwing shit in the pulpit and saying, "Oh, you're not coming here every week. You're not coming here every week." Sometimes they feel hurt. Sometimes they feel like, okay, maybe they're the one doing the witchcraft on me. They start to wonder if the person's doing witchcraft on them, if they are actually causing the spiritual warfare because of how they're acting on the pulpit. And sometimes they do just walk away because they feel like maybe they're causing this. Next one is illness and pain. Maybe they feel so much pain and agony, they can't come to church anymore, and they start to wonder if, is it spiritual warfare? Is it God telling them to leave the church? Like, that's some of the reason why they leave. They think it's someone doing word curses, like witchcraft, on them, and they feel like the reason why they're going through pain is because of someone probably do witchcraft on them at church, and that's honestly some of the reason why people do leave, and they wonder if someone's doing something to them. Next one is work issues. Bad contracts. Some Christian influencers say, "Oh, serve in church from Monday to Sunday. Serve in church. Do this. Volunteer." And sometimes they end up in a bad work contract. The manager keeps changing the rota, You know, they have a Jezebelic manager that keeps changing the rota all the time, and now they're not that available anymore. Their schedule has changed, and some leaders are and some leaders are not understanding. They're like, okay, you don't care about church, you not care about ministry, and it breaks their heart because they do love God, they love church, but life happens. They have a Jezebelic manager. The Jezebelic manager is controlling their rota, and they're making them feel so small and empty, and sometimes they feel like they can't commit, and they feel embarrassed, ashamed because they got a different contract. Some people have a good job, they're CEOs, they're entrepreneurs, they can work from home, but once they got a bad contract, they feel so embarrassed and they walk away. The eighth one is spiritual abuse, public humiliation rituals. You know, using spirituality to embarrass somebody and shame somebody is hurtful. And gossip, you know, gossiping behind their back, you know, that can really cause someone to walk away. They feel so embarrassed. They feel very confused, embarrassed, ashamed, and they feel so hurt. And it's even worse when no one says anything. When people sit there and watch someone get abused and they don't say nothing, it leaves them hurt and they feel unheard. They feel broken, and they just walk away because they feel like no one stuck up for them. And the 10th one is scams, exploitation. You know, when someone going through scams and exploitation, sometimes they go through, you know, they have, sometimes when it comes to scams and stuff like that, you know, when it comes to scams and exploitation, there's some courses, there's some courses that they do offer money, like they do say, you know what, it comes with money, you have to pay money, and that's all right. You know, nothing wrong with buying courses and money and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes when it becomes like, oh, you have to, when it's a have to thing, like if you don't do this course, if you don't pay for this course, you know, we're gonna be passive aggressive, we're gonna use intimidation. And sometimes people are fed up with scams. Some people get caught up in scams. They feel like, oh, you know, they end up in scams, and they realize that this is not what they wanted, and they get manipulated into doing something they don't want to do. And when it comes to manipulation and scams, doing stuff out of their will, like if someone says no to something, let them say no. It's supposed to be optional. You know, if you offering a course that costs a lot of money, and they say no, you know, take the no. Don't try to scam them, exploit them, and you know, try to scam them scam them to do something they don't want to do. Sorry. So if you're using scams, exploitation, you know, people even go through fraud. People even go through fraud, and they get, you know, end up getting scammed, and people walk away because they felt robbed. The last one is titles of bad character. You know, having a title of bad character is really horrible, because sometimes a leader or pastor can be very arrogant and rude and bossy. He's just very bossy, rude, and arrogant, and sometimes people walk away because that made their nervous system tense up. They had a bad nervous system, and they felt so tense. They felt so embarrassed and felt ashamed, thinking, "Wow, this person was so bossy and rude." But sometimes the Ahabs around them, or sometimes people are passive. They're scared of confrontation, and they don't want to tell the pastor that, you know what, you had a horrible character, you're very rude and stuff like that. And I get it. One day, there's nothing wrong with having a bad day, but if it becomes like weekly, something's wrong. Inner beauty is still important. The fruits of the spirit is still important, and when you don't have that, you can lose people, and people get so arrogant, thinking, oh, they're jealous of my ministry, they're not serious about my brand, and it becomes like being obsessed with ministry, obsessed with the title, but don't want to have the character, the patience. So that's important. Hope that helped. If you needed counseling or coaching or prayer requests, email me. Thank you for listening.